Welcome to The Shtick. This week we have with us as our first guest, I'm not sure what to call you. It's Yechiel Greneman is the name on the book, but he's actually a rabbi, and I went to school with him and knew him as John Green. Hello, whatever your name is.
Yeah, well, I went through some changes in school.
You have. We haven't seen each other for a long, long time, and you're back in Australia to promote your new book.
Yeah, I just mentioned we played footy together.
Yeah, we did mention that. No, we haven't yet, but we did play footy.
Yeah, the truth is, I want to promote my book. I'm here to visit my aging mother and brothers. And I was going to come in a few months' time to promote the book, but because of a heart attack, I came sooner.
Yeah, well...
And I pray for my mother's recovery.
We all do. That's great. Now, this book, what's it all about? In a nutshell.
Okay, it tells the story of the migration of Holocaust survivors from the DP camps, the refugee camps of Central Europe, to Australia. It starts right after the end of the Second World War, the Holocaust, and takes the people through marriage, pregnancy, decision where to go, and the boat trip to Australia, and ends as they see the shores of what then was the Promised Land.
And Australia is far away from where?
Yeah, that's...
What does that mean?
That's from one of the conversations in the book, inspired by the writer Elie Wiesel, a short story by him, when they finally get a visa for Australia. These were about 100,000 people who had nowhere to go. There was no Israel. There were refugees that no one wanted. I think the British government put pressure on Australia to accept some Jews to take the pressure off the British mandate in Palestine. When they got a visa, the husband comes to the wife and says, I got a visa for Australia. Where's Australia? He said, that's so far away. Why do you want to go so far away? And his answer, a little bit bitter, is far away from where? That, 6 million Jews were murdered, and they were in trauma, and for him, for the hero of the story, Janosch, he wants to make a new life as far away from war and hatred as he can get.
So it's like rising from the ashes. They really had to come out of what was the most horrific time of anyone's life that anyone could ever imagine and go to a promised land other than Israel. A lot of people did go to Israel, and then the rest of them went to America, Canada, Argentina, Sweden. I mean, there are people that were dispersed all over the world, and that's why there are Jews all over the world, because they had to go somewhere.
There are characters in the novel that go in the illegal immigration to Israel. There's a woman, Rivka, that they part ways with, that the heroine ever falls in love with as a friend. She leaves for Israel. They don't understand. There are wars there. Why is she doing that? And there's a dilemma. The character's based on Ben-Gurion. It's really, I did some historical research, have an MA in the subject. Ben-Gurion and other shlichim went to the DP camps, the refugee camps, to try and encourage people to come to what was then Palestine. Palestine was actually a Jewish community, and many did. And sometimes families split up around that. But many wanted peace and quiet after what they've been through. It's a miraculous, it's a time that's forgotten a little bit. It's a miraculous time because these people had incredible amount of creativity. They rebuilt their lives really out of the ashes.
Completely. And my parents had the same story. They met in Germany after the war and then went to Israel and then came to Australia. And you went to Israel after you finished school?
After university. I went to Israel for a year after school. I fell in love with the country. And when I came back, all I wanted to do was go back there. There was an aspect in me of feeling that I wanted to complete the journey that my parents never took and follow this woman, Rivka, in my story, the people who went to continue Jewish story in Israel. And there was a war in 1973, the Yom Kippur War, and I just felt like I'd been educated, if you want, indoctrinated in Zionism, and I felt like I had to go in 73. So when I finished my first degree, I headed for Israel. I was in the army half a year after I got there, basically.
And after the army, you became a rabbi?
Yeah, didn't happen right away.
No.
After the army, I went back to the kibbutz that had adopted me, and then I went to Jerusalem to study. I met my wife, we had kids. I studied the history of the Holocaust, and halfway, after 10 years of Holocaust, I actually said, I've had enough teaching this subject. It's very sad and it's very personal. I want to move on. And I'd become more religious, more traditional. And then I heard about a new rabbinical school for a movement that was important and big in America, very small in Israel, called the Mesorti movement. In America it's called conservative.
Yes.
And I was actually the first Melbourne-born graduate of this rabbinical program, as far as I know.
Fantastic. And you are involved with a group in Jerusalem called Rabbis for Human Rights. Tell us a little bit about that. Sounds very interesting.
All right. Well, first of all, in my Monash days, I was influenced by the struggle against the Vietnam War and some of the values of some of the more radical kids there, even though I maintained
Albert Langer, namely.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I wasn't quite there, but yeah. I saw the signs on the, railway.
A lot of
walls.
radical kids in those days. I was caught up in it as well.
I hung out with a guy called David Zinger, who
yes.
I like and look up every time I come back here. I know he's not popular in
Another
some circles.
schoolmate of ours. He's in the Democratic...
Jewish Democratic, yeah.
That's right.
Anyway, when I got to Israel, I put all that aside. It was army, learning Hebrew, building a life, whatever, delving into my origins. But after a while, I was disturbed at some of the things I saw happening in Israel. And Israel wasn't the utopia that I was led to believe in a Zionist youth movement in Australia. And I became more critical. And when I became a rabbi, I joined a small group that is loyal. We believe we're loyal to Israel and to Judaism as rabbis, but we also believe there are certain values that are being neglected or not emphasized enough to do with justice, with peace, as against the obsession of some people in Israel with land.
Yes, because there are really a lot of problems that have occurred over the years because of Palestinian-Israeli situation, which we won't go into now. I heard a chap this week called David Landau, who was the editor of Haaretz, and he's here for the New Israel Fund. And that's something that opens a can of worms, which we won't go to at the moment. Okay. But I wish you all the best with your book. It sounds really... This is a novel, and you can find... It's got its own website. And John Green, don't believe it. We are very privileged to have John here in Australia with us at the moment. He's a wonderful man. And if you get a chance, pick up his book and read it, because it's a great novel. We'll see you in the next segment.